I did it. I ran the Goofy Challenge, which was a half marathon followed by a marathon the very next day. And so with that, you actually get 3 medals. So you get one for each of the races and then one for doing both of them. And they're really cool. Like, it has a little spinning thing here. It's got a spring on the back. There's like a little diamond Mickey or crystal Mickey. I don't really know what it is. But these are pretty snazzy medals. The medals alone made doing both of those races totally worth it. But let me share how I prepared for this race, why we chose to do the race, and then how did the races go? I was planning on doing this with Roxanne, my sister. She got pregnant like a month after we signed up, and so she did not train with me at all. I had to do all of it by myself and then race them by myself while she was pending labor, and then she couldn't even wait to give birth until I got back. So let me share my story. Welcome to the MamasteFit Podcast. My name is Gina. I'm a perinatal fitness trainer and birth doula.
And I'm Roxanne, a certified nurse midwife.
And this is the MamasteFit Podcast, where we empower you on your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum journey.
Our podcast shares how to move throughout your pregnancy to stay strong and comfortable, because pain is not a requirement of pregnancy. Understand the science of birth and approach recovery after birth.
We share our personal experience navigating motherhood and our professional expertise as birth workers and fitness professionals.
Our goal is to help you feel confident as you navigate the perinatal timeframe for an empowering pregnancy, positive birth, and postpartum recovery.
We are glad to have you with us on this journey and that you have chosen us to support you. So last year in February of 2025, what year are we in? Roxanne and I decided that we were going to do the Disney World half marathon or marathon. And we had like a few friends that wanted to do it with us as well. So I was like, hey guys, I think it would be really cool for us to do the Goofy Challenge. And so if you don't know what the Goofy Challenge is, it's you do the half marathon followed by the marathon the very next day. There's also a Dopey Challenge, which you do the 5K, the 10K, the marathon, and the half marathon, as well as you do all 4 races, which you would end up with 6 medals. So maybe I'll do that next year. I don't know. I don't want to wake up at 2 a.m. 4 days in a row though. And so registration for Disney races is really challenging. You have to be sitting in a queue, and then it's just kind of like luck of the draw if you get a chance to register or if it sells out. So it was me and 2 of my other friends were like sitting on our computers trying to register, and I was the first one in. And I didn't really know what to expect for registration. So I was like, hey guys, I think it would be easiest if we all sign up for the same race. And I want to do the Goofy Challenge. I want to do the half and the full marathon. And everybody was like, cool, that sounds great. I would love to do that as well. Keep in mind that none of my friends are like serious runners. It's not like they normally run marathons and this seemed like a fun thing to do. So I want to point out that it doesn't take a ton of convincing to get them to join in. So Roxanne and then 2 of our other friends decided that they were going to do the Goofy Challenge with me. And I was also able to sign up some of their husbands as well for the marathon and for the 10K. So we all got registered. We were excited. Roxanne was kind of like, I was just kind of hoping to do the half marathon, but I guess we're just going to do this all. And she and I went for like one long run together, which was 5 miles because we had not really been running much at this point. At this point, I was only about like 6 months postpartum and just starting to get back into running. And so the 5 miles was like a pretty big deal. And then the next month, she tells me that she's pregnant and will probably not be running the marathon and the half because her due date is like the weekend of the marathon. And we had just spent a ton of money on getting registered for this. I was pretty like distraught about it. And mostly because she and I had also signed up for a marathon in June to try to get our proof of time for corral placement. We had signed up for the RV 10 miler together. And so we had all of these races that we were planning on doing together that I was now going to be doing solo. And so I was pretty disappointed by that, but we were like excited for, our last MamasteFit baby as well. But we're also really nervous about the fact that her due date was right around the time of the races. And so for the next few months, I was training pretty hard for this marathon in June to get my proof of time. And so for the Disney race, I had to submit my proof of time by July 31st in order to get better corral placement. And it matters for corral placement for Disney races, and I think for normal races as well, is because there are like characters along the route that you can stop and like take pictures with. And for the full marathon, you can actually do rides during the race as well. And so I wanted to take pictures with characters that I wanted to see. And I also wanted to do the Everest ride. Like that was something that seemed really cool to me, which is a roller coaster in Animal Kingdom. But I knew that it would be easier to do that if I had an earlier corral placement. So I trained pretty hard for about 2 or 3 months for this June marathon, and I got under 4 hours. And I was really proud of that. And it took like everything that I had. And I was 9 months postpartum at this point. So I got my corral, my proof of time, and I submitted that. And I ended up getting corral A because of it, which put me right in the front. And it made it much easier throughout the whole race when it came to like characters. And I was able to like feel like I could take my time, because there is a time limit to how long you can do to finish the race. And so for Disney, it's like A through G are the corrals. And in corral G, there's these people called the balloon ladies. And these are kind of like, if they pass you and you don't catch up to them in a certain amount of time, I'm not sure exactly like the time frame of it, you get pulled from the race. And if you get pulled from the race, you'll still get like your medal, but you won't get like a challenge medal, and you don't get any of the special stuff that you get for finishing like the marathon. You get like a little hat and stuff. And so the balloon ladies start in corral G, and they go at a 16-minute mile pace for the entirety of the marathon and the half. And so you have to stay ahead of them. And so if you're in corral A, you have a ton of time to like just kind of take your time during the race and have a lot of fun with it. And so I really wanted to be in like a really good corral placement. And so I trained really hard to get that corral A. And then I kind of like fell off the wagon with training after that point. So from June to January, my husband was gone a lot for work trips. He deployed. I just was like solo parenting a lot. And there's just like tons of excuses that I had where I just like didn't dedicate the time to do as much running as I was when I was training for the June marathon. And I would do like runs here and there. It was pretty sporadic. It definitely wasn't like a good training routine. So ultimately I didn't really train as much as I had anticipated for this Goofy challenge. I was lifting still pretty regularly, like 3 to 4 times a week. I would probably get like 1 or 2 runs in per week. But I think my longest run was the Army 10 miler prior to the Goofy challenge in October. And so was not prepared a ton. Life circumstances, and I just had a ton of excuses. So not really a good excuse. And so for this next year, I thought that the Goofy challenge was super fun and I want to do it again, but I think I would have more fun if I was better prepared for it as well. So now it comes time to get ready to go to the Goofy challenge. And so my sister is due January 7th, or she was due January 7th. I was supposed to leave for the races January 6th and then come back on like the 12th, which was like, I think it was going to be Tuesday to Tuesday. Because I normally like to do like a week-long trips when we go to Disney, just so we have enough time to do a bunch of stuff to kind of justify the costs of the flights. And we're a military family, so we get to stay at Shades of Green, which is like a really huge discount to stay on Disney property. In addition to, we get really good deals on like tickets for Disney. So if you're a military family and you're interested in going to Disney, know that there are really great programs out there to help make it more affordable that are beyond like Disney military like rooms and military discounts on their tickets. Like you want to go to like your MWR, you want to go to Shades of Green. And I'm going to make like a free guide for military families because I did like a Disney planner for one of our first trips to Disney, and she like never mentioned Shades of Green. Like I happen to know about like the Disney like discounted tickets for military, but it would have saved us a ton. I'm talking like thousands of dollars if she had mentioned Shades of Green to us. But with Disney planners, I think, and I could be wrong, I do think that they get a commission if you stay on a Disney property. And so they may not be like encouraged to tell you about this other one. But if you are a military family, I would highly recommend Shades of Green. You can grab the free guide that kind of goes over some like stuff that can be really helpful for you. If you're not a Disney fan or if you're not a military family, the Disney planners could be super helpful to help you find really good deals. And they could still be really helpful for you if you are a military family, but make sure that you're looking at Shades of Green and that you're making sure that you're getting your military discounted tickets. So she was due January 7th. And as we were kind of getting closer, I was like, you know what? I think it's going to be better if we push the trip back a little to January 8th because we needed to be there by the 8th or the 9th to go to the expo to get our bibs. And we were going with some of our employees and they were running the 10K on the 9th. And so we decided to all get there on the 8th. And so that was kind of like the latest that we can go to still let everyone get their bibs and packets because you have to pick them up the day before. And then I was planning on staying until like the following Wednesday to give us a full week there. but I was kind of like, maybe we should come back a little bit earlier. I'm not sure. And then the day before I was supposed to leave, we thought my sister was in labor. I was like, yes, this is it, like perfect timing. She's gonna have her baby. I'm gonna be able to relax while we're on this trip and we're gonna have so much fun. And it ended up being a false alarm. She did not give birth. It was just prodromal labor. We had a pretty good cry on it, realizing that there was a good chance that I was probably not gonna be back in time for her birth. So I left the next day and immediately changed my flights to come back on Monday. The race, my marathon was on Sunday, and I thought about coming back Sunday night, but after my last marathon, I traveled home the same day and I was absolutely miserable. And even in hindsight, after these races, I was less sore than my marathon in June, but I still would have been pretty miserable flying back. And so we made the decision to come back Monday night after the races. And so I was like, hopefully that's enough time. And this dude just hangs out until Tuesday. Spoiler, he did not hang out until Tuesday. He came Monday morning, the day that we were flying back. And I sort of manifested this because I said, I know as soon as I change my flights and we come back Monday, she's gonna give birth like Monday morning. And we're gonna come back early from our trip when we could have stayed a few more days. But I also would have felt like, I think, more guilty if we had stayed longer. I also wasn't gonna have anyone else there with me after Monday because my husband was gonna have to fly back Monday for work. So it all worked out that we came back on Monday. I'm able to help her a little bit more postpartum, but let's talk about the races now. And so when it comes to a Disney marathon, you're also like near the parks. And so my kids like to go to Disney. We're a big Disney family. We have a lot of fun with it. Being a military family makes Disney pretty affordable for us. And so we went to the parks on Thursday. We went to the parks on Friday. So 2 days before my half marathon, I was in the parks like all day. And then the half marathon came. And so in preparation for the races, I was kind of learning about different things that were like people like to do, like they dress up in costumes, that there was characters along the routes. And these were things that I learned like after the fact. Like I didn't know that this stuff was like a thing during the races until like the past year. So for my half marathon, I was dressed up as Belle. I found like this Belle outfit on like an Etsy shop. And so I ordered it. And then the day before the half marathon, one of my friends that was running the half with us, she was like, I have my braid appointment at this time. And I was like, oh my God, like I didn't even think about getting my hair braided. And they happened to have a last minute cancellation. So I showed up and got my hair braided as well. So they did a really good job. They stayed pretty good. So this is Tuesday. I got them done on Friday. So I'm really excited to take them out because my head's a little bit itchy, but I wanted to have them for the video for those of you that are watching. So I was able to get my hair braided, which I was super excited about. Both my girls got their hair braided as well. And then I had my costume, I had all my glitter, and I was ready to go. And so my husband came in Friday night, and so he hung out with the kids while I went to bed early because I had to wake up around like 2:30 a.m. and woke up, grabbed my bag, and then I went to the race start. And so with the bib pickup, you get like a clear plastic bag. And I think this is the same for other races because I also saw it at like the Army 10 miler. And so I think it's more of a thing with like bigger races. For like my smaller marathon that I did, our cars were parked right there and we didn't even have corrals and stuff. So for like the Army 10 miler and for the Disney marathon, you have like a clear plastic bag that you can put stuff in and then you kind of check it for your gear check. And then after the race, you can go pick it back up. And so in that bag, I included sandals for after the race. I included a towel, like a hand towel to kind of dry myself up that I ended up not needing because they gave us like a cooling towel after the races. But for the marathon that I did, I found having a towel to kind of dry off was really nice. For the marathon, I added in an extra change of clothes because I was really cold after the half marathon. I didn't think about putting in an extra change of clothes. And then I also included like my Theragun for the marathon as well, just to like, in case I wanted any massage stuff, but I ended up not using it. I also brought pre-race stuff with me as well. I had arm sleeves that I was thinking about wearing, but it was actually pretty warm out, so I didn't end up using them. But I did bring like a hypothermia blanket with me, which I found to be super helpful before the marathon because it was actually a little bit chilly before the race started. And so having that hypothermia blanket was really nice because I can keep myself warm, and then it was super easy to ditch like when the race started. Other folks will bring like throwaway clothes with them where they'll wear like a sweater and like sweatpants or like a pajama set before the race to keep warm, and then they just kind of toss that stuff. I've heard that the races will collect all the clothes that gets tossed and donate it, but I'm also not sure if they just throw it away. And so I didn't feel comfortable with just buying some cheap clothes to just throw. I felt more comfortable with like the hypothermia blanket, which was also much cheaper as well. I think it was only like $5 for like 4 blankets, and they're pretty small. And I was able to fit it within my like little fanny pack that I had for the races to put like my phone and like any sort of snacks and stuff that I had. So that's what I brought with me, and I checked it, and it was really nice to have all that stuff post-race, especially the sandals. At a minimum, I would say have like a change of shoes or something to go put your feet into, because it feels so good to take off your sneakers at the end of the race. So I show up at the start point, I check my bag, and then I look for some water and I look for some snacks. I was not very prepared nutrition-wise for the races at all. I was just kind of like showing up with vibes, like good vibes, and just hoping for the best. But they did have like a snack stand, so I got a banana and I got a water, and I was just kind of eating and drinking that in preparation. And then before the Disney races, they had like 4 character stations where you can like take a picture with different characters. And so I ended up getting into the longest line on accident for Daisy and Donald. And so each of the races had kind of like a theme or like a character sponsor. And so the half marathon, the character was Donald and Daisy. So they were like the main ones in the race. And then for the marathon, it was Mickey and Minnie. And so for the half marathon, Donald and Daisy were the long lines. And then for the marathon, Mickey and Minnie were there to take pictures with you, but they also had other characters. So for the half, I waited in line for a long time for Daisy and Donald. And I was getting a little bit nervous because like, oh man, I have to go to my corral by a certain time. Otherwise, like my gate is going to be closed, but they actually were going to shut down the characters before that even happened. So I ended up having plenty of time. So after I took my picture with Daisy and Donald, I like ran over to my corral, which was Corral A, because I worked really hard for that marathon in June and then did not really train after that, which was a mistake. Made it to the half marathon section, was kind of waiting there. And I didn't realize that within the corral, they have like subsections. So they kind of split up each corral into like 5 sections, I think. And so I ended up being in like section 2 of Corral A. And so for the marathon, I was like, okay, I want to make sure I'm in section 1. So I was like 2 people behind like the line for row number 2, I guess. And so they have like fireworks, and then the first part of the corral went, and then they had another set of fireworks, and then my group within the corral went. And the first character was like a quarter mile into the race, and it was Tiana and the dude from, I think it's Naveen. And I was in a Belle outfit, so I wanted to take pictures with all of the princesses. And I was like, all right, I'm going to wait in this line. And it ended up taking about 4 minutes to make it through that first line to see Tiana and Naveen. And so my first mile ended up being like 20 minutes. It took me like 20 minutes to do that first mile. So if I was like, oh man, if I was in the first wave, that line might have only taken me like 2 minutes or a minute for like potentially. And there ended up being like 3 characters in that first mile. So I waited in all of those lines because it was like, I think it was like 2 or 3 princesses that I wanted to see. And so the first mile took me about 20 minutes, which was fine. I was just there for the vibes. I was not trying to like race or like kill myself in this half marathon. For the half marathon, I stopped at all the characters, like all the princesses and the ones that I like really liked. And then the ones I was kind of like, I don't really know who you are, I just kind of skipped. So I didn't stop for every single character along the route. We make it all the way to Magic Kingdom, which is about like the halfway point or the turnaround point. And when you enter Magic Kingdom, all of Main Street, which is that initial road that you enter into like down towards the castle, is like filled with people that are like cheering. And it's like 5 a.m. at this point, like 5:30 maybe. And they're like screaming and cheering for you. The lights are really cool and beautiful. And I just like got kind of choked up and like teary at it because it was just like really cool looking. And like the castle is like all lit up in the back and like this purple and pinky and blue colored. And at the end of Main Street was like Mickey and Minnie to take a quick photo with them. And then you run through Adventureland where I found Jasmine and Aladdin. You run around Adventureland into Frontierland. And then you come back through like Liberty, I think it's like Liberty Town or something. Come back around into like the fantasy area, which is where Rapunzel and Flynn Rider were. And then you kind of keep going, and then you run through the castle, which was really cool. Now, when you come out of the castle, there was an opportunity to take a photo with the castle, which I really liked. For the photo passes during the races, they just do your bib numbers, and then a few hours after the race, you get like all your photos. And so they had folks that were taking photos of you as you were running, in addition to you could like pause, take pictures with the characters or with key landmarks in each of the parks. And then after that, we went through Tomorrowland, and then we started to head back towards Epcot to finish up the race. When we came back to Epcot, we just kind of went straight into like the parking lot area. We did run in front of the big ball or the globe at Epcot, so I took another picture there. And before we kind of made it to this point, one of my friends had caught up to me that was doing the Goofy Challenge. She had actually been training for these, so she was definitely running a little bit quicker than I was. And at that point, I was definitely like really wanting to walk a little bit more, but she kind of encouraged me without realizing to keep running it. So we ended up finishing. It was super fun. I really enjoyed it a lot. We got like our post-race pics, and then I went and got my sandals, but I didn't have a change of clothes. And so I was like really cold and wet after the races. For some reason, I convinced myself that I was not going to sweat during the half marathon because I wasn't going to be running very hard, but it was really humid and pretty warm out. And so I was like, why did you think you were not going to? That's weird. Why would you think that? So I finished the half marathon. We went back to the hotel, and I did like an Epsom salt bath. I did leg compressions to help with like, leg massagers from Syncom. Those were like really helpful. I did like 45 minutes on it, and it like really helped me feel so much better. And then I used my Theragun like on my glutes and my back and stuff to kind of target key areas that felt a little bit tight. And after I kind of like felt a little bit better from that, we headed into the parks for like another full day with the kids in the parks, because that seemed like the best way to recover from a half marathon is to go and do 20,000 steps in Magic Kingdom. So we did full day in the parks with the kids. We did all of their favorite rides. I took the younger ones to go see the characters that they really wanted to see. And so we were just like having a ton of fun and really enjoyed our time in the parks. After that, I went back to the hotel, and I wanted to go to bed like on the earlier side because I had to wake up again at like 2 a.m. And so my husband took the kids and he went to like the arcades because they were not quite ready to go to bed. And we were also trying to figure out what our plan was for them to come and spectate. For the half marathon, I was done before the roads even opened back up, so they wouldn't have been able to leave the hotel unless they left at like 3 a.m. with me, which my children are not early risers, and that just didn't seem to make sense. If it was just my husband and I think he would have came solo. But with all 4 of our kids, we opted for him to just stay back for the half marathon. But for the marathon, there was a good chance they would be able to make it to Epcot or the finish before I finished the race because the roads opened back up at 8:45. So we were trying to figure out like what that plan was going to be. And so he's like, I'm either going to take the bus or we're going to take a Lyft to get to Epcot for the finish, and we'll figure it out. So the next day I woke up again. It was 2 a.m. when I woke up. Roxanne was not in labor. She was still very pregnant, and she was going to do updates throughout the race for me. So I just sent her like pictures and videos that I took during the race, and then she went and posted them on Instagram so that all of our followers can kind of keep track of like what I was doing. And she was also tracking me on like the tracker system that they had for the races. For the marathon, I was the Queen of Hearts, and I had these like super cute outfits from, it's like Run So Sweet on Etsy. I'll definitely get some from her next year because they were super comfortable to run in. They were super cute. I got tons of compliments on them, which was surprisingly motivating for me during the race, especially the marathon, to where like, I was like, oh, at least I look really cute right now. And my hair was like super cute. My outfit was cute. My nails looked pretty bomb. So overall, like at least I looked good. For the marathon, I showed up and I wanted to take a character picture with Alice and the Mad Hatter. Yes, was that the Mad Hatter? I think it was the Mad Hatter. I'm not sure. Anyways, it was Alice and some dude with a big hat, which I'm pretty sure is the Mad Hatter. Because I was a Queen of Hearts. And I was like, oh, that would be the perfect picture to get. The line for Mickey and Minnie was like super long and I didn't want to wait in it again. So I took my photo with them. I checked my bag and then I grabbed my banana. I grabbed a bar this time and water. And then I headed over to Crowley to wait because I wanted to make sure that I got into that first wave this time. The day prior, one of my friends that was in the group had gotten like a list of like who all of the characters were going to be along the route, which normally it's supposed to be a surprise, but some folks I guess get access to this list somehow and like they send it out. And so she took a picture of it on somebody else's phone and then other people were taking it from my phone. So you kind of had an idea of like who to expect along the way. And so I looked at it and kind of made a plan of like, who do I want to stop for along this route of the marathon? Because I don't necessarily want to stop for every single character. And so 4:30 came around and the race went off, and there was a surprise character that wasn't on the list, Raya. That was like one of the first ones. I think it was before mile 1. So I took a photo with her and then just kind of kept going. My pace averaged to be around like 11, 12-minute miles between running and stopping to see characters, because some of the character lines would take like a minute or two. And so when I was actually running, I was probably around like a 9:30, getting close to like a 10-minute pace at certain times. But I was averaging probably like just under or just over 5 miles an hour. When I made it about to mile 10, I was trying to figure out the math to the Everest ride. So you start out the race in Epcot and you run all the way around. So you do all of the countries. And I was trying to take like a video of me saying like all the country names, like in the pageant thing where it's like France, but I was feeling a little shy. And I also am not very good at taking videos as I run at the same time. So they didn't turn out very great. But we ran through Epcot and then we headed to Magic Kingdom was the next place we went. It followed a pretty similar route as the half marathon through Magic Kingdom. Main Street was still super magical and super cool. We ran through Adventureland, Frontierland. With Frontierland, they actually had like the Maleficent dragon out with like the music. And so it was really cool how they paired the music to like the characters that were like nearby as well, which I thought was really neat. They didn't have music playing like everywhere along the route, which would have been just too good. But at different points, they did have like different types of music playing, which I really enjoyed. And then just like everyone cheering for you, it was super fun. So after we made it through Magic Kingdom, there was just like a lot of like parking lots and stuff. And at this point, I'm around like mile 10 or 11, I think. And I was trying to figure out the math of like how fast do I need to run to get to the Everest roller coaster in Animal Kingdom? Because I had heard that they weren't going to let runners onto it after 8 a.m. So the park had early entry at 7:30, which that's when you can start doing like the rides. As long as the park is open, you can do rides in the park. And so the Everest ride is along the route of the marathon. And so it's like a thing for like marathoners to run off to go do the ride and then get back on. Not everyone stops for it, but I really wanted to. But I had heard that they weren't going to let marathoners on after 8 a.m. And so I was like, okay, so I have to get there before 8 a.m. So how fast do I need to run? Because it was like mile like 17 and a half, almost 18 was when the Everest coaster was. And so for the next like 5 miles, I definitely ran a little bit harder because I wanted to make sure that I made it there in time. And I did make it in time. So I rode the roller coaster. And as soon as I got off it, I was like, my legs are really stiff. Like it's really hard to walk and like run right now. So I started doing a little bit more walking. So at this point, I'm at like mile 18. I'm still feeling like pretty good up to this point. After doing the coaster, my legs were definitely like, that was a horrible idea, but it was super fun. So don't regret it. And so I did a little bit more like walk running for like a mile or two. And then this is when my like family starts being like, hey, we're trying to figure out how to get out. Like the lift is taking forever. The bus line is super long. And so now I'm like, okay, well, I want to slow down to make sure that my family is there at the finish because I'm really not running for time. I'm just running for like good vibes at this point and for a good, I think I told Roxanne, I'm here for a good time, not a fast time. And so I started focusing more on walking for like the next 3 miles just until they got kind of situated. And this was also where we were going through like a lot of like parking lot running. They had like this whole road all the way to Animal Kingdom that was just like Star Wars theme. And they had like lights and music. And it was like you were in the middle of a battle. And they had like 4 or 5 different Star Wars characters along this kind of like mile road, which was pretty cool. And then after that, there was like a few characters after Animal Kingdom on the way to Hollywood Studios. But most of kind of that section of the road, I did a lot of walking to like, one, I wanted to rest a little bit more. I was feeling pretty fatigued. And then I wanted my family to be all set up at the finish. And so I think I had about 3 miles to go and my husband told me that they were all set. They were like on their way. They were all staged. And at that point, I started running again. And I ran until I finished the marathon. So prior to this point, all of the water stations I would walk through. So as soon as I would like make it to it, I would walk as I drank a Powerade and then I would drink a water. And then as soon as I reached the last trash can, I would start running again because I knew I really needed to emphasize walking a lot more during this marathon because I had not trained in the way that I needed to in preparation for it. And then during the first portions of the marathon, I did more of the character stops because I wanted to make sure that I was taking my time and resting a little bit more. And during the character stops, I was also stretching and kind of doing some mobility as I was waiting in line. And then I also forced myself to do more walking in the beginning before I was tired because I knew I was going to need that later on. So coming back to after the Everest coaster, I was doing a lot more walk runs at this point. And then probably from like mile 20 to like 22 or 23, I was like doing much more walking with it. So prior to this, I was averaging probably like 10 to 11 minute miles. And then at this point, it was more like 15-minute miles with like all the walking and stops that I was doing for characters. And then my family told me they were all set. So from mile 23 until the finish, I ran close to like a 9:30 pace, which I was pretty excited by and impressed by because I had gotten a second win. I also ate at all of the stations that they had along the way as well. And so that was like my nourishment plan, which is like whatever Disney wants to give me is what I'm going to do. And so I think like just from like continuing to nourish myself during the race, it just kind of gave me that boost that I needed. After I started running again, it was really hard for me to stop because once I stopped, I felt like my legs were getting really stiff. So at that point, I kind of just ran through most of the water stations. We made it through Hollywood Studios. It was like a shorter run until Epcot to the finish. And so I just kind of like, I'm just going to finish it. My family was there at the finish. It was super motivating. Like I stopped to do the landmark photos in Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and Epcot, even though I was still kind of cruising, but I wasn't quite on my phone as much with like sending updates to my family. But I did let them know like, hey, I am like almost there. And finished. It was super cool. After the race, they give you like your medal. You get like a Powerade and a water. And then as I was grabbing like my little food box, all of the cast members were like congratulating me by name because your first names are on your bibs. And I started like tearing up because it was just like really cool that they were like, good job, Gina. Like you did awesome, Gina. Like congratulations, Gina. And I was just like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, so overall, I would highly recommend the Disney races. They're super fun. They're really low like threat. This marathon, I think I finished in like 5:30, which was obviously much slower than the marathon I did back in June, which was a sub 4. But I had like a really good time along it. I think my total running time was 5 hours. So it's like 30 minutes of like more idle, like standing in lines and doing a ride along the way, which I'm still pretty excited by. It wasn't for like time. It was just to like have a ton of fun. Post-race, I definitely did a lot more like recovery as well. I did the leg compressions twice. I did my Theragun. I did Epsom salt baths. I took like a short nap a few times. And then probably by like late afternoon, I started feeling like a little bit more mobile. And then we went back into the parks so I can do a little bit of walking. But it was a pretty like low effort evening for me. And then we were just like super excited. My sister did the updates throughout the entire marathon. And it really just seemed like I was going to make it back in time for the birth. And so I went to bed that night. I was exhausted from the past 2 days of waking up at 2 a.m. every day, and then also doing a half marathon and then a full marathon. And so I was just like dead to the world, and my phone was on silent. And when I woke up around 8 a.m., I saw that I had a ton of notifications, and I had a feeling that I knew what had happened. I was hoping that she was just in labor and that it would be fine and that we can figure something out. But nobody had called me at any point during this process. And so once I woke up is when my mom called me, which is like just a little bit after 8, to like tell me that the baby had been born, that it was a really fast labor. And then I realized I had like some text messages from my sister starting at like 1 a.m. telling me that she was having contractions. At like 4 a.m., she was saying, I'm vocalizing through them. You're not going to make it. At 7 a.m., I had a few FaceTime calls, I think 3 total, from the midwife and the doula that was there that just did not wake me up. And then at 8 a.m. is when I woke up from my alarm and then saw that I had like all of these missed notifications and was pretty sad about it for sure that I had missed the birth. In hindsight, like I could have came back Sunday night and probably would have made it and it would have been fine. But she had a really great support team there with her. It was a really smooth labor, no complications. So I really couldn't ask for anything better for her other than wanting to be there. And I don't really know what I could have done had they called me earlier in regards to like trying to get back. Like, could I have rented a car? The earliest flight was like 7 a.m. to get out of there. So it definitely would have been a little challenging for me to figure out how am I going to get home right now. And I also probably wouldn't have made it either way, but was really sad that I couldn't be there for her. But I did have a great last day in Disney. I did have a really good time doing the races. I will do them again. I've inspired a ton of my friends to do it next year with me. Looking forward to doing other races as well. That definitely really helped to remotivate me to get back into running, to get back into doing races, because it's one of those things that you can still do as an adult to have like a competitive like aspect to your life to help motivate you to do exercise, to train. As like a high school athlete and a college athlete, it was definitely really fun to be a part of a team, but it's a little bit harder to find that now, like in my late 30s, of that kind of like team and competitive aspect. And so doing these races, even though they're running ones, is bringing that for me and bringing me a lot of motivation to incorporate some running back into my life, because it is pretty fun to do. So that is my recap of the races overall. Felt like surprisingly good. I definitely thought it was going to be much worse than it was. During the half marathon, I think about the halfway point, I was like, I'm a little tired. This kind of sucks, but was having such a good time like during the race. During the marathon, around mile 18 after the roller coaster was when I was definitely like, my legs are tired. But then had a second win the last 3 miles and ran pretty quick to finish and felt pretty strong at the end. Today, which is 2 days later, I'm definitely like sore still. I feel like I just did like a heavy lift the day before. So not as bad as I was anticipating, but I also didn't race the marathons. But I do think that I could have had more fun if I actually trained and prepared for it. So looking forward to doing some more races this year. If you have any really cool ones that are in your area that you've done before, like a half marathon or a full marathon, I would love to know them. I want to do races that are like super fun. I also do want to try to get some faster times in as well with some more training. So if you have any recommendations on races that I should do, definitely let me know down in the notes below. So let's talk about logistics now of the races, especially as a breastfeeding mom, because I was getting a lot of questions on how do you do these longer races while also having to nurse on demand or having to pump or having to feed a baby. And so for my marathon in June, I was 9 months postpartum, and I pumped right before the race and I pumped immediately after the race because I didn't have my baby with me. Now, I only ran for 4 hours, and so that was a shorter period of time, but by the end of that 4 hours, I would say probably 3 hours in, I was definitely feeling a little bit more full. And so if you're anticipating that your race is gonna be longer than kind of your normal duration or frequency of nursing, I would schedule some sort of pump station for you along the route. So whoever is there supporting you during the races, which I would highly recommend having somebody support you during these longer races, can have your pump. I like to do a manual Medela pump, and they can have that for you at a certain mile marker. So at the halfway point, at mile 20, at mile 10, or wherever you want to be, they can be there with your pump so that you can get a little bit of relief. Just knowing that if you don't fully empty, it's okay. We're just trying to get to a point that you're comfortable again, and then continue running. So for me, for the marathon in June, I pumped directly before the race, and then I pumped directly after, and that felt comfortable for me. But I would say around the 3 hour mark of the race, I was like, I feel a little full in my boobs. For this marathon, I didn't feel like I needed to pump at really any point during it, even though it was a lot longer. But I am also 16 months postpartum, so I'm not nursing quite as much. So I nursed my baby right before I left. She continued to sleep, and then I went off. And then when I got done with the races, I came back and nursed her, but I never felt super full during it. I can normally go a longer period of time, probably 8 hours before I start to feel uncomfortable. But again, I am 16 months postpartum. So just kind of take into mind what the frequency of your nursing sessions are, how long it takes for you to feel like you're really full. If it takes a shorter period of time, kind of scheduling or planning some pump breaks throughout, and you don't have to do a full pumping session. It can just be a quick kind of top off, for example. Something else that I find really helpful if you do have to breastfeed or nurse during your races or immediately before or after is to have some sort of sports bra that makes it easy to do that. So during the half and the full marathon, I wore the Love and Fit Strappy Back 2.0 bra, which we have a color that's branded for MamasteFit. That one's really nice because one, it's really comfortable to run in, it's really supportive, but it's also super easy to nurse in. So if I know I'm gonna be working out with my baby nearby and I'm gonna have more high impact stuff like running or jumping involved in my workouts, I'll wear the strappy back bra because it's comfortable and it's super easy to nurse in. Other things that I'm thinking about when it comes to just feeling comfortable during my races, both with thinking about breastfeeding in mind, plus like my own nourishment during the races, is I want to make sure I stay hydrated. And hydration is more than just drinking plain water. You also want to incorporate some hydration salts and stuff in it. Element is my personal favorite, so I had like a few packets that I carried with me during the race, and I would think like every 8 miles I would drink like a whole packet because it was pretty hot and humid and I was definitely sweating a lot, and this applied to my marathon in June as well. So with Element, it definitely has a stronger salty flavor, but I like the bold flavor of Element, and lemonade and watermelon are my favorites. And so I had a few packets that I was drinking throughout the race. I would just pour it into the water, stir it with my finger, and then just chug it. So it was definitely super strong because it was only this much water for a packet that's meant for a full water bottle or 2 water bottles. With Element, we do have an affiliate link that I'll link down below. If you purchase through our link, you'll get a free sample pack. And I would highly recommend their Insider Bundle, where you get 3 boxes plus 1 for free. And they have a really great return policy. So if you get them and you're like, this is disgusting, how dare Gina recommend them? They do have a no questions asked refund policy. So it is kind of a no risk adventure with it. But I do really love them. Roxanne loves them. We sell it here at our gym in North Carolina. So I wouldn't recommend anything to you that I don't personally love and use. So thanks so much for joining me on this journey and for being a part of MamasteFit, either as watching Roxanne during the end of her pregnancy and now into her postpartum period, watching me navigate pregnancy and postpartum 4 times now. This is the last MamasteFit baby. There will be no more from me either. So from now, you can just kind of monitor and watch us and do races and do all of the things in motherhood. If you want more support to get back to running in the postpartum, it was something that you really enjoyed doing. I was a collegiate runner. I did ultra marathons before my kids. And so running was definitely something that I associated with a part of my identity. And so the very first program that we created with MamasteFit was a return to running postpartum program. That was the first program that we launched online. And over the years, we have improved it. We have updated it based on new research, new experience with our clients. And so our return to running program is on our website. It's 64 workouts that include strength training in addition to running workouts, because it's not just how many miles can you run, it's also how strong can you be while you do it. I have found as a postpartum athlete, and even just as an athlete after college, incorporating the strength training with the running has helped me to be a much faster and stronger runner with very little injury. When we are not strong enough, sometimes it makes running a little bit difficult and potentially can increase the rate of injury as well. In addition to our postpartum return to running program, we also have our return to marathon program as well, which is a 28-week marathon training program that I will probably actually do this time. I used it for my prep to the June marathon, and then I kind of fell off the bandwagon with using it for preparation for this marathon. But next year or this year, I will be actually using it. So if you want either of those programs, you can also grab them both and bundle them together on our website at MamasteFit.com. And you can use code YouTube10 to get 10% off any of our online offerings. In addition to our return to running programs, we also have our prenatal strength program. We have our postpartum programs, which include video-based workouts in addition to self-paced workouts. So you can choose based on your preferences, either during your pregnancy or after birth. One of the things that I think really helped me to get back to running after giving birth was all of the work that I did during pregnancy to stay in pretty good shape throughout pregnancy. Obviously, there's still stuff you have to heal from after you give birth, regardless of your state of fitness going into pregnancy or going into your labor. So we would love to support you in any phase that you're in addition to our Beyond postpartum program, which is what you do after you do all of our basic programs. So you can use code YouTube10 to get 10% off any of them. And thanks so much for your support as we navigate our own personal journeys. So the only thing that I would change about the races this year is next year, I want to make sure that I bring my parents. So there is some people that can hang out with my kids the night before. Trying to sleep with all of my children when knowing that I had to wake up at 2 a.m. was probably the most challenging aspect of these races. And so having more of a plan of who is going to be with the kids at night so that I can focus on sleeping the night before would be super helpful. But also it'll really allow for me to just focus a little bit more on my races instead of having to worry about the kids the night before. And then it gives us plenty of time to go into the parks and enjoy everything together. So thanks so much for listening to this episode to hear about how the marathon went for me. I really appreciate all your guys' cheering and good vibes as I was running the race. And stay tuned to see what sort of silly athletic thing that we do next, to see what can we do now that we're moms of 4 kids for both of us.